Welcome to this latest episode of the C-Suite podcast that we're producing in partnership with Payable and their Pay It Forward podcast. Throughout this series, we've been exploring the evolving world of trust, risk, and customer experience in today's digital economy. We've covered APMs, subscription models, and the future of retail, and you can catch up with those episodes wherever you get your podcasts. But no series about payment innovation would be complete without a focus on fraud, which is what we're going to do here today. On this episode, we'll discuss the emerging threats and the way that businesses can lead the fight back and protect themselves and their customers. I'm your host, Graham Barrett, and joining me around the virtual round table are Julie Ferguson, who is the co-founder and CEO of the Merchant Risk Council, Felix Efren, who is the senior fraud analyst at Bolt, and Ishmael Gozail, who is vice president of products and platforms at Decathlon. Welcome to you all. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. Julie, maybe I can start with you because it would be great if you could set the scene for us, give us a snapshot of the fraud landscape at present, and maybe the threats that are causing you the most concern.
So the fraud landscape is pretty typical. Constant attacks from all over the world, typical kinds of fraud, account takeovers, scams, card testing. One of the statistics that I heard the other day that was a little bit concerning is 37% of all internet traffic is malicious bots. So when you think about what that means there's a whole lot of activity on the internet that's actually trying to commit fraud. And the thing that we've really observed in our community is the fraud is getting far more sophisticated. The fraudsters have AI tools, and the AI tools get significantly better. I used to say every month. Now I'm going to say every week. It's moving at such a fast rate. But the tools that they're using to automate these attacks, you used to have to know how to write code. You used to have good English to write letters for scams. AI has taken care of all of those challenges. And so it is becoming easier and easier to commit fraud. And so the volume of attacks and the cleverness and craftiness of the attacks is getting more and more sophisticated.
Felix, what about from your experiences at Bolt? Did what Julie say marry with your experiences at Bolt? What kind of threats are you seeing at the moment?
Yes, it does. So yes, AI is here to change the landscape. I want to say that AI is a sword with two edges. So in one side, it's good for us that we are able to use AI in order to make our work better. But the big disadvantage is that fraudsters are the one using AI. One of the big trends that I have seen in Bolt is the using our AI to commit refund fraud. So first friendly fraud, as we call it. And the other one, big one, is to actually get fake IDs verified within the platform. So right now, you go to ChatGPT and tell me, I want this picture to match Hawaiian ID, and you can get that ID quite easily. So that's one of the big challenges that we have seen at Bolt.
And how easy is it to combat those twin threats?
Well, it's not easy because the naked human eye will never know the difference. But luckily, we're working with integrations with local authorities to actually verify that ID is within their database. It's a work in progress, but yeah, the fraudsters advance with tools, and so do we. We combat it with more integration, with more tools.
Felix, I'd love to hear your opinion. One of the biggest challenges that I'm really concerned about is how are you going to tell a good bot from a bad bot? As AI starts to emerge and do the shopping, we've had a lot of these, I call them cocktail conversations, where we're drinking a few adult beverages and trying to figure out how are we going to identify when it's a good bot versus a bad bot? And there really doesn't seem to be any clear path.
And I think we will not, but that's where we will have bots fighting bots. I don't know your space because usually you know about many industries. I myself I focus on Bolt, which is rides, scooters, which is my domain, and food delivery. This is the main areas of Bolt. And I have seen that instead of going all fancy AI, we have taken a step back and realized that machine learning is actually very underutilized, and we have put big hopes on machine learning to fight the AI and all that ChatGPT influx that we have from bots. So yeah, maybe fraudsters are using the new age technology. Maybe machine learning can do the fighting pretty well for us.
Thank you. Well, Ishmael, let's bring you into the conversation as well, because as I said, you're from Decathlon, quite a different business to Bolt. Clearly, you're predominantly in-store purchases, aren't you? I think I was reading you've got 1,800 stores in 79 countries. Is that right? Just before we get into the fraud conversation, how do you ensure kind of that consistency of customer experience across all those different stores and in all those different territories?
Well, the fraud conversation was fascinating. I would have loved to listen in a bit more into it. But yes, we have a different problem right now, different kind of problems. Like our majority of our traffic is in store, 85+%. Digital is 15%, growing very, very fast. So that right now is not the top of our problems, even though it is a problem. So to your question, how do we ensure consistency? Well, we spent a lot of time thinking about what's our singularity in terms of experience, and our singularity at Decathlon is a couple of things. One is the product we build and the care we put into designing products. That's one. And second one is the care we take to talk to our customers, and that's something we want to replicate on the digital space in the digital world. So that's one of the primary focus and how we ensure consistency. But then it's a lot of stores, it's a lot of countries, and we have to blend also what we do centrally and what we do locally. So there is consistency in our singularity and local adaptation.
And then to bring it back to the kind of the fraud question as well, then, as you said, your digital sales are around the 15% mark, which you expect to see grow. So I guess you're kind of anticipating then potential problems in the future. Would that be correct?
Absolutely, and we see them already, right? We see them already. Um, and the way look, I spent a lot of time in the payments industry before, so we have a structured way to think about fraud and risk, and I tend to put them in three different categories, right? Your customer fraud, account takeover, Julie, as you mentioned earlier, right? Like your financial instrument fraud, like, unauthorized card transactions. But we also have a seller fraud. So more and more what we see growing at Decathlon is a marketplace where you have, seller coming, selling, we call them third-party goods. And so those are the three categories. And yeah, I mean, we have different strategies for all, and we're going to evolve as those businesses grow, and some of them grow faster than others, and we'll have to shift. But that's how, this is our landscape.
What I think would be helpful here, especially for our listeners, is obviously we can talk in generalities about fraud, but some actual tangible examples of where this has happened to businesses. Felix, I'll come to you for any experiences that you've had at Bolt. But Julie, starting with you, can you share any merchants or any types of attacks that you've witnessed, kind of serious fraud attacks, and how those have been put into place?
Yeah, so as Ismail was talking about the reseller fraud, it triggered a thought. I had some merchants sharing with me the other day that it's really becoming a huge problem because the tools that are out there, the AI tools, allow you to replicate a website just by doing a screen capture and saying, "Build me this website." And getting the products or similar products, but using the brand is becoming incredibly difficult to monitor because it's so easy to replicate. So that's one of the big threats that our member community is working on right now. And I also like to look historically. So 30 years ago, when there was no internet and everybody was throwing up internet stores really fast, internet fraud at merchants actually grew to greater than 5% of their total sales volume. And the reason why is when there's a rapid pace of change, becomes all kinds of great loopholes and ways for fraudsters to get in, and all the traditional patterns of traffic go out the window. And I think Felix kind of alluded a little bit to that with some of the things that he's been seeing. But that is the area that I really think is the absolute biggest threat to our industry right now is marketing people and the product people are going, this is a great new technology, let's implement this. And you need to make sure that legal compliance and fraud are a part of the conversation, because it's going to open up a lot of holes. And just like at the dawn of the internet era, the dawn of the AI era is moving at an incredibly fast pace. I mean, it's much faster than when we turned on the internet. I could surf the web in a day looking at the web page and listing all the sites, and the next day there'd be 5 more, right? With AI, there's a new company every day, not just a new technology. And so um, that's one of the big challenges. The other things that are out there is there's services that will give you a mailing list or a distribution list very easily. And so to get those fake identities to commit fraud, to create those fake accounts, our members are seeing a lot of that happening with third-party tools out there to create those fake identities. And you can do it at scale and repeatable because of the tools that are out there as well. So our members are quickly focused on building things to identify velocity problems. And in fact, refund fraud was one that we saw grow in velocity last year, where people would like, and a great example is people would buy 2 products at the exact same time on the exact same, within a minute of each other. And then they knew the customer service was trained, hey, I got a duplicate charge on my card. They'd look at it and go, oh yeah, that looks like a duplicate. And they would refund one, even though the merchant had actually shipped them 2 products and it was 2 legitimate orders, but it hadn't happened before. So that was a loophole on refund fraud that somebody figured out, and they were able to detect, because duplicates has been a problem a couple of years back. And so all of those things that are vulnerabilities, the fraudsters are now figuring out, because they can test it and think about it and brainstorm very quickly with AI tools.
Moving on to you, Felix, what are some of the most alarming and sophisticated threats that you've seen at Bolt?
Oh, well, there's a big list.
Too many to mention, yeah.
Too many to mention, but there is one that I would like to mention. Obviously, I cannot disclose the country of origin, so I will just use Star Wars reference to mark the country. So let's say that a country called Naboo. Naboo is doing well. It's a country that we operate in Bolt, and all of a sudden we start seeing a lot of increase from Mustafarian cards in Naboo. We thought it's fraud. So your average, this is stolen cards. This is happening. Let's deployed or anti-fraud tools. The issue here is that our anti-fraud tools were working even before the spike. So the anti-fraud tools detected the spike. They start challenging the verification to the card. And what happened is that Mustafarian cards are very old, and they have a very unique error. And that unique error, our payments team read it as a not pass, which turned it into a pass, a complicated issue. So all of a sudden, you could use Mustafarian cards in Naboo and get free food. And this is not sophisticated. This is eluding a bit your question here. But the thing is that we have underestimated the power of social media. Within 48 hours, the thing became viral, and all of a sudden, Naboo's GMV grew exponentially. We were delivering pizzas. We were delivering a lot of food. Our couriers were not able to carry so much food. Restaurants run out of food to sell. And all of this happened just because a bug within our system. And yeah, I want to say that one of the very underestimated things that we have is the communication within our teams. That's one of the big lessons that I think everybody of us has experience to it. And the other one is that we should not underestimate social media. And this is one of the things that we actually keep an eye after learning that mistake, to see if there is a spike on social media, mentioned in Bolt, because some of the times will be regarding fraud, and that helps us to keep things more or less under control before they quickly escalate.
So, what was the end result then? How long did it take you to detect that this problem was happening, and how did you manage to stop it?
It took us around 2 days to really find it out because the error was so unique. We were thinking we were doing good because we were thinking that was a problem with stolen cards. Those cards were never stolen. It was just a very unique error. It was just one guy who was sharing his bank account, his card detail, and all of the card got loose all over the internet.
But that is an interesting point about social media as well. I mean, I don't know if anyone wants to come in on this, but just on a more general sense about social media and social media companies, what responsibility do you think they have to try and reduce and limit fraud? Julie, I don't know if that's one for you.
Well, it's a tough question because we have free speech, right? So you can't censor conversations per se. That said, I would say most of the social media companies are good citizens. And so if you come to them and say, hey, this is a fraud scam, or hey, this is an exploit. So I think what Felix was really describing is somebody figured out a hole and exploited the heck out of it. But they're really pretty good about taking it down. So I think cooperation and collaboration among the industry is key in any of these scenarios, as well as communication internally on the teams.
I want to add, this was not a fraud attack per se. It was a issue within the fraud. But we had issues, as Julie was saying, that we have actually fraudsters trying to defraud thousands of clients trying to get their money. And we have cooperated with the social media platforms as well to ban their accounts because this is financial crime. This is not like a simple bug or something.
Felix, I have a quick question. Do you guys develop also clawback capabilities when you face similar attack?
No. Depends of the issue. We have bugs, of course. We have bugs where we are not managed to take the funds from the client. For this specific case, we did not because we didn't have the means to actually retry the payment. We operate in the industry within 50 countries with thousands of payment methods with uh, with different verticals. So for this specific one, we did not, but many other ones we actually tried to get back the funds from the clients as well.
Yeah, one of the methods some of our members use when they have similar business models to how you do business, Felix, is they'll shut down the consumer who exploited the system and say, until you pay us back, you can never use that phone. So they block the device as well as the card number, as well as the person's name and the person's email. And they try to make them pay restitution to get the money back. It is somewhat successful. I will say I was using a ride sharing service and it actually was fraud. I called my credit card company, said, that wasn't me. Somebody stole my card and used it as fraud. And my phone was blocked until I paid that ride sharing company for that fraudulent transaction. But because I depend on that ride sharing company, I actually foot the bill for the fraud and had to pay them through another method that was not the credit card to be able to get my app turned back on. So it works, but I'm still a little spicy over it. And it probably happened 5 years ago. So
Yeah, and I think you should be spicy. Of it was very specific, and as I mentioned, we operate in so many countries. You mentioned something about regulation, and can you imagine maybe that regulation in that country allowed you to do that, but if you were traveling, as we were in Spain a couple weeks ago, maybe that would not allow you to do that within the European framework. So it really depends. But we do try that. We try a bit friendly methods as well. It depends as well of the type of fraud. When we have fraud attacks, like a proper fraud attack, like somebody using stolen cards that we know that was stolen, it was a fraud attack. We block the accounts, and then no need for you to come back.
You also mentioned international markets there, Felix. I know Bolt is growing pretty rapidly. You're expanding into new territories. So when you do that, is the fraud threat because you are just becoming bigger and so you are a bigger target for the fraudsters, or is it because there are specific fraud threats in those new territories?
That's a very good question, and I think it's a combination between the two of them. We grow, and Decathlon is growing as well. I think Ismael will have something to add in here. But also we have different types of fraud depending on the localized type of fraud. And some of them, like we see in the whole European market share, then if we go to Latin America, and it's a totally different fraud that we are not used to, even though I'm from Latin America. And we go to Asia. Recently, we spent to Oceania as well. So we have different types of fraud depending on the region. But obviously, we sometimes attract organized crime. The bigger that we become, the bigger that the company becomes, and we attract them to actually try their luck within our platform. And also sorry, and also depends on the payment methods. Very important, because sometimes we go to a new country with a new payment method that we are not used to doing business with, and sometimes fraudsters are able to explore into that.
Yeah, it's a combination of both. Like when you're big enough, then you become a target, by nature or by design. But fraud, in essence, is more local. Like you see fraud in certain countries picking up, piping, right? Like it's still a local activity. Um, I mean, I can speak maybe a bit more on how we're thinking about this. Like, we're organized in a way that you have a big payments engine that is central, and that's 80% of the effort and of our investments uh, in payments and fraud capabilities. We do it centrally, but then you have to think about how do you become locally relevant, well, for your customers, but also for fraud. And so you have that 20% rule who has to be local, has to think about how you customize your risk rules, and then how you pick up on risk trends locally and react locally, right? So, and that it's very much a local business. At least that's what I've seen in the past, and what we see at Decathlon.
Yeah, no, the reason I asked, because obviously if you've got a computer, obviously you can commit fraud, payment fraud from anywhere in the world, but yet there is still this regional variance. So Julia, that leads me on to the next question about, we talk about these sophisticated fraudsters, ever increasingly sophisticated fraudsters, which we kind of bandy that term around. But who are these people? Who are these fraudsters? Where are they, and how are they doing it?
They're incredibly organized. There are 7 facilities across the globe that have over 500,000 people who do nothing but commit scams and fraud all day long. And in these facilities, they have quotas. They use all kinds of tools. There's developers. There's lots of technology. And they are actually oftentimes people who've been human trafficked and who cannot leave. They've been sold into slavery or indentured servants, so to speak. There's people who've applied for jobs. They arrive, they get locked up, and they can't leave. And so it is absolutely terrifying. These facilities exist in outlying countries. Myanmar is one of the countries where it was a casino during the pandemic that went bankrupt. The organized crime came in and bought the facilities, took it over. There's pictures of it. You can see the barbed wire around these enormous compounds. And that's where the crime is happening. And we actually sit and talk about what should be done, right? So I love a Star Wars analogy, right? So I always say this is like the Death Star, and we're in the growing phase right now. It's really scary. But it's like, if we cut off their communications channel to the internet, they just find another way to connect. If, we're not going to drop a bomb on it because it's full of innocent people, right? If we liberate all the 500,000 people, we've just freed 500,000 people who all know how to commit fraud and scams, and they don't have a path, an economic path to success other than continuing to do what they do. And so it's really a tough problem. And some of the merchants and banks will say, well, let's keep them all where they are. At least we know where they are, and we can kind of recognize the patterns and tune the models. And I really believe that there's several things we need to do. One, we need to continue to evolve technology to identify and stop it as best we can. We need to try to shut these sites down and figure out what the heck we're going to do with all these people. Because there's 7 facilities with 500,000 people. That's a lot of people. But then we also need to educate everybody. And when I say educate everybody, I don't just mean your coworkers at work and your teams and the Treasury Department developers and customer service. You need to educate your families. All of us fall for scams. I've fallen for 3 in the last 6 months. a little tired. I'm shopping in the morning. I'm like, oh, that deal looks too good to be true. I buy it. And then I realize, oh, I put my credit card number in and that really wasn't the merchant site I thought it was. And I'm scammed, right? So, but there's a video episode I recommend everybody watch with their family. And I've made most of my family watch it with me at this point in time, but it's by James Oliver and it's on pig butchering. And it's a great little educational, and he makes it funny and entertaining, but it really lays it out and drives it home to everybody on a human level, because we have to educate everybody. That is going to be one of our key ways to win against this.
Well, let's just finish off by talking about Ishmael and Felix. I guess what you're concerned about, as well as fighting fraud, is payment innovation. But let's kind of put those two things together. How can we kind of continue to innovate? And how Julie's alluded to a few kind of tactics there, but how can we fight back here? Because oftentimes it does sound like a bit of a losing battle, especially based on the conversation today. Please, Ishmael, go for it.
Yeah, I'll take a crack at it. Look, it's a race, right? Like it's a race. It's a never-ending race, and I think it's gonna take being smart, being smarter, and eventually pooling resources. So for us, it's a lot about pooling resources as well, right? So Decathlon is part of a family of brands, right? The Famille Mullier. So it's one of many companies, of course, from retail roots, and digital is a part that is growing. So how do you think about those problematics? By pooling your resources and being able to invest in a concerted way. Payments innovation, but also fighting risk at a bigger scale, at a larger scale, right? That also has the benefit of pooling data and having better way to triangulate your customers, understanding your customers, and then obviously this help quite a bit in figuring out the good from the bad transaction. So this is one of the angle we're taking, which I believe in quite a bit, so that's how we're thinking about this.
Felix, what about you? How are you approaching this? What do you see as the main tactics to fight back?
Well, I do agree. It's a never-ending battle. It will never end, because where there is value, there will be people trying to steal it. And this is a issue for the last 5,000 years. People try to steal your value. That's for sure. But the way that I see it is that fraudsters will be always innovating, and we as a fraud fighters, we have to be reactive to what they're gonna do, because the fraudsters, they have the time to sit down and think, how are the vulnerabilities of your system? You are too busy. You are fighting 10,000 fires at the same time and dealing with reports and reviews and all that, blah blah blah. The fraudsters have the time to explore your weaknesses, so they will explore that one and turn it into a monetary gain for them. We, as a fraud fighters, we need to keep enabling more payments, make it easy for our customers, and just react to where we see the problem is, because we will never know all the 10,000 vulnerabilities that we have until the fraudsters start exploring them. So yes, keep reacting to fraud and thinking that the future will be bright.
Is the future bright, Julie? Are you generally optimistic or pessimistic about the way this fraud landscape is going?
The great news is fraud is cyclical. There are times when we're winning and there's times when we're losing. And we're about to go through, I think, a little phase where we're going to be a little bit more on the losing side. But optimistically, it means we all have a lot of job security. So that's the silver lining. I think it's cyclical. We're not going to lose, but it's gonna be tough couple of years as the technology evolves at such an alarming rate.
I 100% agree with you. It's cyclical. And once we start figuring out that all these 3DS implementations were finally getting rolled out, once we were thinking that it's actually going to be better, AI arrived to change the landscape. So yeah, I absolutely agree. Short-term pessimistic, long-term optimistic.
Thanks to all my guests for their insights today, to Julie, to Ishmael, and to Felix. And please do follow this Pay It Forward series wherever you get your podcasts. You can catch up with all the previous episodes at payable.com/podcasts and also on our C-Suite podcast website. And if you want to contribute to the discussion, you can find the C-Suite podcast on LinkedIn and all the usual social channels. Finally, if you'd like to get in touch with the show, you can do that via the contact form at csuitepodcast.com. But for now, from me, Graham Barrett, thank you for listening and goodbye.